Welcome back to the channel. I'm Crypto Trend Trader, and today we're going to be taking a look at Bitcoin. But before we get started, I'd like to remind you it's not financial advice. I'm not your financial advisor. These markets are extremely volatile, so please trade responsibly. So here we have the Bitcoin chart on the daily. This is Coinbase, and we're going to start with Fibonacci going back from the 2015 low down here up to the 2017, 2018 December high at 20,000, and then that is going to be our blue Fibonacci over here. And then we're going to do the orange one from the top at 20K down to 3,200 right here. And then third, we'll do the green one from 3,200 up to the top here at 14,000. And then we're going to skip over the one from 14,000 on down just because it gets a little cluttered. But we do have the one down here from 7,300 up to our local swing of 10.5. And as you can see now, we have pulled all the way back down, and we just made it to the 0.5 of the green, which is also right at the 618 of this small little move right here. So what we'd expect to happen right now is a reaction off of this point, at least back up to the 0.5 if we were going to get any kind of reaction inside the white here. If we don't get a reaction here in the 618 area, I would expect us to continue down to the 786. Which doesn't currently correspond with any of the other fibs. But if we get down to the 886, that's going to correspond with the 618, which is where we kind of like tagged down here before. And depending on how you look at it, on the green fib 618, we kind of got front run on this push down here. So potentially I would expect us to come back down and officially tag the 236 618 and essentially like fulfill that algo, and then potentially get the swing back up and out of this downward consolidation pattern. But it is important to keep all this into perspective. We are, depending on what time frame you look at, if you look at like a macro monthly, we're still in an uptrend. You look at a weekly, we're starting to flip back over to a downtrend. But we could go in a downtrend on the weekly and not necessarily go into a downtrend on the monthly. And that's basically what's been happening. But we're getting dangerously close to the point where essentially we can shift that over. So we basically sold off on the weekly up in this area here, and now we're back down at the bottom, so we could potentially swing from this area and enter back into a bullish trend on the weekly without having to get back down to this 3,000 area where people are talking about. Now, does that mean we're not going to go to a new low before then? No, it does not. But does it mean that this could potentially have already been that swing, and we could from here move back up and start going back to higher prices? Yes, it's a possibility for sure. And looking at the oscillators, it is a potential zone for us to do something like that. As you can see, the Jewel Thief is already getting ready to cross back over, in a powerful way. But we have to be cautious because we could get another situation like this. I mean, if you bought this situation right here thinking it's going to the upside, it bounces up real quick, or one of these, and then it just continues, sells off to lower prices. Here it sold off, consolidated, and then got a massive dump. So, the most likely thing to happen is what's happened in the past until it doesn't. And, as far as I'm concerned, that's what's most likely to happen. We'll continue to sell off until we see strength from the market. And as of now, this looks to me like a dead cat bounce. This looks to me like an attempt back up, a test for liquidity, a grab for liquidity, and now we're just selling right back off. And the fact that we're selling back off here, back down to potentially dangerous levels. We're still in the area where we could reverse here and move to higher prices. And, lower time frames, it doesn't look bad. We could find support right here on the TJD, TD, MACD. We're already getting the positive. Oh, no, I'm sorry. We're still trending down, actually strengthening to the downside on the Jewel Thief. So, yeah, I don't think it's unrealistic to think at this point in time that we could go either way. This is potentially a decent pivot to play off of, though, because you could essentially be going off of your pivot here at 8,500, either to the up or to the downside. If we're going to move to the upside, you're looking for at least a move to 8,900, if not back up to this zone in 9,300. If you're looking to the downside, you're looking for your next target to be 7,990 or down here to the 7,600 range. But essentially, we're looking for a retest of the bottom. But at this point in time, I would have to just go with the trend, and the trend has been down for an extended period of time. We did kind of pop up over this descending resistance line, but we really didn't get above the most important resistance line to me, is this purple triangle that we broke down from, and that resistance line is still coming in above our heads. And matter of fact, if you were to just basically continue that resistance line, I mean, essentially, if anything, to me, this looks like confirmation that we should be bearish, because we tried to break above it. We got a massive wick up. That's a huge move, and something that, Bitcoin's essentially only done a couple times in all of its existence for 10 years. Got such a massive move in such a short period of time like that. And then, we essentially sold back off underneath the resistance, and then now we're just trending back to the downside. So, if we do get a close outside of this, that will definitely shift me immediately over to bullish if we get a confirmed candle close on like a 4-hour maybe, but definitely a daily above that point, and then I would expect continuation to the upside, and potentially the swing low is in here. But if we don't get above it, I would expect us to continue selling off till key levels. So I would look for our support at the 786, the 886, and then if not, potentially a double bottom here, or essentially just reaching that algo target of the 618 down here, I think is huge, because that's an area where we're very likely to reverse, is in that 618. And if we don't, it could be a stiff drop, because the difference between the 618 and the 786 is massive, and there's nothing there as far as support on the way up, but that's our consolidation range, on the way down. So what I would expect to happen is essentially, more than likely to be testing like the 6,000 range if we're going to come down below that 618. So I don't want to see us down below the 618 for long, and if we do, I don't want to see us far below it. If we consolidate directly below it and then burst back up, I'm going to feel good about it. If we start closing and getting kind of droopy down here in that range like what we're doing now, I would definitely expect it to keep coming down. So, and again, the way this looks to me is it looks like we tested back up, and essentially there was liquidity grab. There was definitely a buy wall in place essentially to unload some positions, and then we got a little markdown off that, and now we're consolidating. So if we break out of this little, we're forming this little wedge right here, and there is something to it, because we haven't broken down from it, and it has been lasting now for quite some time, but we had a breakdown from it, and then we consolidated, moved back up inside of it. So I think if we consolidate here for a little longer, we could potentially move back up to the top of this range, that 86.66, which is 3% essentially, 2-3%. But again, do you really want to fight for that little bit of gain? You know what I mean? In an overall downtrend, when you can just basically short and hold. And we're getting contradiction on the 4-hour here. We're seeing TJD, TD MACD. We got the crossover. We're getting the blue. We're trending to the upside. And as far as the jewel thief on the 4-hour, we checked that out. Blue crossed over the purple, and the green is strengthening to the upside. So both those are giving us, they're both giving us a buy signal. So maybe we'll take a little stab at this. Look for that couple percentage move up. Potentially even get that move back up to the 9100 range. It's a good place to manage risk off of. So we could basically do, if we come down much below this, that's a 7.5% to the upside, or 1.5% to the downside. So I mean, you're looking at essentially over a 5-to-1 risk ratio off this area, and if it's coming down below here, it's going to sell off. Again, it's not financial advice. I'm not your financial advisor, but as far as I'm concerned, if we break structure out of this, it's going to get droopy and we'll sell off. Versus if we get a little move up to the upside. So there is some potential here in either direction. It's definitely a decent place to manage risk off of, as it is that 0.5 that we consolidated around for so long. But at this point in time, I'm bearish until I see something else. I did want to just mention quickly here, though, that's the fib circle bottoming right there, and as you can see, we get a lot of interaction from it, and this thing is coming to basically a point right at the fib circle down here. So we could basically just consolidate and stay right here, and then finally when we get to the edge of that fib circle, see the break. And if that fib circle does play out, I would expect the break to be to the upside, because essentially what that's saying is that this was in fact the swing low. But we could come all the way back down here to any of these other points, all the way down to 7,500 without invalidating that swing of the fib circle. So well, there you have it, guys. That's a Crypto Trend Trader Daily Bitcoin Technical Analysis. It's getting kind of quiet right now, and we're getting a little bit of a slow sell-off, but that's when you need to pay the most attention, because most people come back to the market after the big move. It's better to get in there, get an idea what's going on, get a little TA, figure out what you're going to do, get into positions, or know what you're going to do when the big move takes place, because that way you can get into the trade ahead of time or get into the trade with the trend rather than coming in at the last minute trying to figure out how you're going to get in, and really you're just buying somebody else's bags because the move's already over. Especially in a market like this when we're not trending, we're essentially just, ranging. You don't want to get stuck at the top of the range buying somebody else's bag and then it bounces around, you're stuck in a position. So there we have it, guys. Crypto Trend Trader, Bitcoin TA, signing off.